Hello, Taurus, and welcome to your reading. This is Bright Soul Collective Tarot. My name is Laura, and this will be your mid-month check-in for March 2023 into the beginning of April 2023. This reading will be for Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Rising, so by all means, if you know your three major placements, feel free to listen to any and all of the readings that apply, as each one may resonate for you differently. And as always, before we get started, please do keep in mind these readings are general in nature. They're meant to apply to a more broad collective of individuals, so that means that not every detail that comes through will necessarily be for you. I highly recommend you take anything and everything that does resonate, however that might make sense or connect to your personal situation. Definitely use your discretion in determining what fits and what is best for you, and you can simply leave the rest. So Taurus, I hope you're doing well. I hope March is treating you well so far. We're just on the verge of spring, which is exciting. Super happy to be with you today. I've got your oracle theme to start out. We're going to pull some tarot. I will share a couple of channeled messages, and we will finish off with a couple more oracle cards and some affirmations. So before we jump into the cards, I'll take a moment just to tell you the energetic impression that I was picking up on as I was preparing for your reading and channeling your energy. And I will say the overarching theme was kind of a sense of flexibility and flow. So this may be something that you find comes easily and you're able to lean into and embrace, or it could potentially be something that you're struggling with or that is posing a challenge. And because we are halfway through the month, this might be a theme that has been ongoing or that you're already kind of working with. So the first thing that kind of occurred to me was a sense of having a bit more ease and release around mistakes or something kind of not going right or going to plan. So it's kind of like if you have an oops, make a mistake or a fumble, it's being able to just kind of accept that that's what it was. It was a mistake, it was a fumble, and to just kind of move on from that, right? To kind of get back up and keep going instead of taking on that and personalizing it and internalizing it or punishing yourself, right? Instead of looking to it as evidence for, why you don't do a good enough job, or telling yourself a story about, how that mistake came to be or what it means about you, right? So I kind of get the sense that either you're being challenged to, or you may find yourself just kind of flowing through those mistakes more easily. So it's like you kind of take the lesson, okay, gonna try not to do that again, move on, right? Not kind of make a big production out of it, which is really great. So yeah, just kind of being able to move through that. And then I kind of got in a sense of if you face any delays, if you're waiting on things, if things are not quite moving forward or materializing the way that you expected to, just a sense of being able to be flexible, right? To kind of flow with the pace of things, right? Because certain things are out of our control. So trying to force them or getting worked up about them isn't necessarily going to be a wise use of our energy. The next thing that came through was is kind of like opposing forces or opposing energies. And so you can think like shadow and light, or you can think like a solid and a liquid, or, a desire to move forward versus a desire to stand still. Right? So you may have really kind of opposing energies, thoughts, feelings, and approaches. Maybe you fluctuate rapidly or regularly between two kind of opposing concepts or ideals, and perhaps that's leading to a little bit of instability, right? That fluctuation. I definitely got the sense that, yeah, there's two opposites here, two opposite energies or opposite approaches that you might be prone to leaning into, and that the current energy is lending itself to you being able to kind of balance that out, right? And to recognize that each one of those energies, each side of the spectrum, has its benefits, has its uses, but neither is universally applicable, right? And neither is going to benefit you 100% of the time. So there's kind of the energy that there's a time and a place for certain actions, for certain ways of handling things. And to be really conscious and intentional about making those energies work for you. Because just because you experience those kind of polarizing energies, however that might resonate for you, you know, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. And you don't have to punish yourself, right? Obviously, we try to kind of bring it into center and walk the middle path. But part of walking the middle path is knowing when to act and knowing when to stay still, right? And so this may be a lesson that you're learning. It might be a theme that's kind of repeating, because it's recognizing what's going on the bigger scale, right? So what's going on with you, what's going on in your external circumstances, what's going on in your relationships, what are you working with, right? And recognizing, is this a time to rest, to rest and to recuperate, to reflect, to kind of analyze and figure out, what didn't work, what a new strategy might be, so that you're prepared to move forward when things start going? Or is this a time to just, capitalize on energy and momentum and to keep kind of putting in work and seeing things move forward? So the thing is, depending on what energy you're working with, I'm just using like rest and take action as an example of two opposing energies. But the thing is, like, it's kind of feeling out the landscape as well, because if you're in a period of time where things are kind of stopping you or things are becoming stagnant and there are things out of your control that are kind of slowing you down, just because it's slowing down in your external environment doesn't mean your motivation or your desire to charge forward has gone away, right? So sometimes we have to adjust to our circumstances, right? Even if that means that we have to kind of put a little bit of a damper on our need to take action, right? It's kind of working with the energies that are being presented rather than against. Because if it's a time for rest and it's a time that things are kind of stagnating, there's a reason, right? There's a reason. And perhaps we need time for things to be woven. There are things kind of under the surface that we don't see that are falling into place to allow for more effective action to take place from there. And then other times, it's, we may not feel like doing something, but it's like the right time. Things are moving forward and we have to just kind of jump on board, right? So it's being able to harness those opposing energies and to make them work for you, rather than working against them, right? Because if things are meant to stay still, there's not necessarily anything that you can do to force it. And that isn't a good, that's not a good use for your energy, right? You could just kind of tire yourself out trying to force something to happen when it's not meant to be. And at the same time, you can also like force yourself to stay still and do nothing when everything is pushing you forward, and that's not going to serve you either. So it's kind of learning to go with the flow and see where you're being guided, work with the energies, and kind of get into the flow of the cycles of life, right? Because there are times for action and there are times for rest. So instead of opposing them and trying to control situations, it's kind of like moving with it. So I thought that was kind of an interesting vibe. So we're going to get into your oracle message for this month. So you've got Observer. And this is a really interesting card because it's all about perspective. And obviously our perspective of everything, so our perspective of ourselves, of others, work, life in general, that shapes the kind of experiences that we have in our external environment. So basically, like what we see and what we believe to be true is ultimately going to be reflected back to us, because that's what we're focused on, that's what we're looking for, and that is what is inspiring the decisions that we're making. So if you see opportunity and the world is your oyster and that's how you feel, you're going to be looking for opportunities and you're going to be capitalizing on opportunities and you're going to be moving forward. Whereas if you see lack, and stagnation and, impossibility everywhere, then that's where you're going to be focused on. And if your energy is focused on that, it's pretty hard to move forward and connect with anything other than that. And so this kind of demonstrates the importance of perspective. Sometimes we are just too close to something to really get a better, to get a big picture view of it. For example, a relationship. And so this could be anything in your life that you're focused on, perhaps something that's posing a challenge to you, maybe something that's really important that you're looking to produce or develop or move forward with. You may just be too close to it, right? Especially if you have big aspirations or you have a lot of expectations or you're really eager to see something succeed. We live life as a result of our own experiences, and we kind of view life and other people through the lens of our own experience, but that's just our specific lens, right? And so there are so many other perspectives, there are so many other realities, and it doesn't necessarily serve us to just be focused on our own little petri dish, right? Because our experience in the grand scheme of things is relatively limited. And so it's beneficial to connect with other individuals and other perspectives because they can help introduce a new kind of way forward that you may not otherwise recognize or connect with. So for example, if there's a problem, right? If there's a decision that needs to be made, if there's a problem that needs a solution, if there's something that you're kind of trying to move forward on, or you've hit a bit of a roadblock, or you're not sure how to move forward, it can be really beneficial to connect with other individuals because they will have a completely different perspective on your situation. And that's to say, not to connect with people's opinions and experiences indiscriminately. I think it's important to kind of vet the people that you look to for information, not from a place of bias or for, seeking out people that are going to tell you what you want to hear, but making sure the people that you are kind of taking into consideration at the very least are people that you can trust, right? Like people that aren't going to be out to sabotage you. I think, I don't even think that needs to be said, but it's important to connect with other perspectives because this card showing up says that something or multiple things that you're focused on or working on, you're not necessarily seeing the whole picture. You're not seeing all the details. You're not connecting with all the information that might help you to make a decision or that might help you to kind of resolve or move forward or kind of connect with that success you're looking for. And so this isn't only connecting with other perspectives, but it's also widening your own lens, right? Because if you're looking at something through a microscope, it's really easy for that to kind of take on a life of its own. And when we focus too closely on one thing, we run the risk of becoming ignorant to the fact that life is very complex and interconnected and nuanced, and nothing exists independently. So as much as we might like to focus on one little individual thing and what's going to happen with that and what that needs to succeed, we're kind of negating the fact that there are so many other factors that determine how things happen, right? So for example, if it's another person, right? We may see that person from our perspective and we may judge their behavior and their actions and their thoughts and feelings by putting the lens of our own experience on it. But the thing is, our experience has nothing to do with theirs, and we don't necessarily know what they've experienced or what has shaped them. So by putting our own lens over that situation, we're kind of ignoring the fact that that person is a completely different human with a completely different set of experiences and emotions and things that have shaped them into who they are. So it becomes really difficult to grant understanding or acceptance to other individuals when we're only seeing things from our side. So that's like obviously in an interpersonal capacity, but even if it's just a project, right? If we're just focused on one part of a project or one step, right? And we become hyper focused on that and fixing that, it is, that little thing is not going to be standing alone. It's going to be working in coordination with, and it's going to be impacted by a number of different things. And so perhaps the best way forward, or perhaps the solution is actually going to be outside of that specific situation, right? So yeah, we don't want to become so focused on a particular thing that we lose sight of how it has even come to be and how it exists, right? We kind of need to have a bigger picture view of how things function. You want to see what's really going on. What does this thing impact? What is it impacted by? And that is going to give you a better perspective, even if you do need to focus on fixing or refining one specific thing. It's like you kind of have to cast a wider net, because you can become blinded if you're looking at things too closely, right? So this is like kind of widen the lens, take in more. So you want to survey, yourself, right? How do you feel about yourself? What's going on with you, and about another person, or about the situation, about a project, and the landscape in general? Because the more information that you take in, everything is impacted by everything else, right? So the more that you take in about the environment as a whole and everything that is within that environment, the more easy it is to see how things are connected and how one thing might impact another. And then it makes it a lot easier to kind of work through and create more harmony and balance. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else here specifically. We'll get you some tarot cards and we'll see what comes up in connection with this. So your first card is coming up as the Ace of Wands. Okay. And your second card is coming up as the King of Cups. And your third card is the Queen of Pentacles. And at the bottom of the deck, we have the Eight of Pentacles. Okay, so we're going to go through this reading with the understanding that perspective is everything, right? Like we have to kind of look at the big picture and take everything in. So there's a lot of information that's available to you, and you might not realize it, right? So especially if there's something that you're feeling stuck or, particularly invested in, it's recognizing that you may have fallen into the trap of becoming a little bit too hyper-focused, and there's so much information available to you. It just takes some time to kind of soak it all in and to determine what's best, like what it is that you need to know or how you need to move forward. So the vibe that I'm getting here with the Eight of Pentacles and the Ace of Wands specifically is that this very well may have to do with some kind of creative venture. It could be entrepreneurial. It could be just in terms of a new hobby, something that is inspiring you. Because the Eight of Pentacles here, this is the card of like practice and mastery, and, just putting in the practical work, like just the solid steps that it takes to consistently practice and refine a skill, right? So this is the energy that we have to be. It's an energy of being willing to study, right? Being an apprentice, and the apprentice eventually becomes the master. And the Eight of Pentacles energy is basically that process, right? So it's coming up with an idea, having an inspiration, like having inspiration strike you, something that you want to pursue or learn, and recognizing that we have to kind of move through these phases of practice, right? So the intention to start and to see something through to completion is important, right? Because that's what's going to keep us focused on what it is that we want to achieve. But the fact is that we can't get too far ahead of ourselves. It's important to know the end goal and to know what it is you're trying to achieve, but it's also important not to put pressure on yourself to get there immediately, right? Because everything takes time and it's a process. And this Eight of Pentacles is it can be very slow. It's a slow, steady, consistent practice of a skill, slow and steady refinement, right? And, think about it's graduated too. Think about, moving through school, right? So it's like you graduate each year and you kind of advance to another level, right? And the interesting thing with these Eight Pentacles showing up as the moon and the moon phases, this is showing that this is not a short-term thing, right? So it's like, the moon cycles over the course of a whole month, right? So it's like, maybe a whole month is just being at one stage until you graduate to the next. And you think about it, and if a month is 30 or 31 days or whatever, it's like that's a lot of time. That's a lot of consecutive days to be taking the action to practice your craft, right? So sometimes when we get excited about something, we don't necessarily realize the amount of time and effort and how long things will take to come to fruition. And that can be discouraging. It can discourage us from taking those steps. It can make us feel as though we're not seeing success, or we're not being effective enough, or we're not improving quickly enough. And a lot of the time, we just kind of set unreasonable expectations for ourselves. And the Eight of Pentacles energy is recognizing that it takes however long it takes. The most important thing is that you're consistent, right? And that you are dedicating yourself to taking those steps, being that student, putting in that practice, because that is ultimately what's going to pay off for you. You're not going to become the master overnight. This is a long, gradual thing. And your goal you shouldn't be motivated by becoming the master, right? Or mastering something entirely, right? It's about being changed and grown and improved throughout the process, and what you experience as you move through these cycles. So that might be the energy that you're in. Either, you're in the midst of this kind of practice and you're just waiting to see the results come in, or perhaps that's an energy that you've mastered, because now what you need to know is that there seems to be a new opportunity here for some kind of passion or inspiration to take center stage, because it's the spark of creativity and inspiration. So if there's something that inspires you, if there's something that you're interested in, something that is longing to be created, perhaps something that's been on your mind, or something that you're in kind of the initial stages of doing, this is kind of a confirmation for you that this is an opportunity, right? And even if all it is an opportunity for you to connect with that inspiration, to connect with that passion, and to allow yourself an outlet, like something to kind of pour yourself into gradually because it's fulfilling for you, you don't know what that's going to turn into. You don't know what doors that might open, right? So I think the importance with this is releasing any expectation of like where it's going to go, or what it's going to be, or what it's going to bring into your life, and recognize that the most important part is that passion and creativity. That is the opportunity, and it's an opportunity for you to kind of get into that energy, allow yourself that outlet, and to see what kind of way that might unfold, right? It's kind of like blazing the trail. If you're blazing your own trail and you're lighting your own way, you really can only go step by step. It's very hard for you to survey the landscape or to determine what's coming your way. You kind of have to be okay with taking it step by step. You clear a little bit and then you can only see as far as you've cleared. So I would say it's okay if you don't have every step planned out, and if you don't know what every step looks like. And in fact, when it comes to matters of the heart and things that we're inspired by and creativity, that can't be structured. It can't be locked in. It can't be something that we kind of plan and control, because that goes completely against the creative process, right? So you need that freedom and that space to be able to connect with, embrace, and express that energy. And obviously having a structured way to do that is going to be helpful, so that you're leaving space for that practice. But you don't want to try and figure everything out and control it, because that kind of dampens the spark, right? And so, yeah, I think it's just important to just be open to the opportunity and not to decide what that opportunity is or how it's going to go. Just to be open. This is kind of like a journey, right? The wands is very much a journey, and it will change and shift and grow. What you start off doing might not be the end result. It might just open a door to something completely different. So there's just that flexibility needed, and recognizing that it's the inspiration and the spark of creativity that's the most important. And that's what you want to cultivate and infuse into what you're doing. Yeah, and that it kind of, it might open up other doors as well. So perhaps the practice has been allowing yourself to simply be creative and to be in that energy for the sake of enjoying it, and not trying to control or lock it into something solid, right? And funny enough, saying lock it into something solid. Your challenge is showing up this month as the King of Cups. The King of Cups is the opposite of solid. He's firm and rooted, but he's in the flow. So that could be an energy that you're struggling with, particularly being an earth sign. You do thrive in structure. You thrive in like the practical kind of manifestation, right? This energy. Sometimes there can be impatience and wanting things to materialize more quickly, but it is like, taking the action to make things happen seems to be your zone, right? So this energy, this King of Cups energy, it's about emotional awareness, intuitive awareness, subconscious, right? It's about the inner workings of our mind and our body, and how our emotions and our subconscious and our intuition plays into our day-to-day life, right? And so particularly if you are quite focused on, taking those practical steps and the tangible expression of your ideas and material stability, right? Because that's your wheelhouse. The focus on the emotional, the spiritual, the intuitive, and the subconscious could potentially be on the back burner. It might not be something that you're aware of, but this is kind of an untapped source of power for you. So you may see your power as somebody who can take action and make things happen, right? And maybe it's like coming into embracing this creativity and recognizing creative power and how that might, change the way you take action in the world. But there's a sense of like a need for this emotional and subconscious mastery. And that's kind of bringing everything into balance, because it could very well be your emotions and the things that you have kind of been programmed to be triggered by or to respond to on an emotional level that could potentially be the thing that throws you off of your path, right? And specifically, if you're looking at something too closely, if it's too personal to you, it's hard to get that experience, or sorry, it's hard to get that perspective that's really going to help you determine the best way forward for yourself and potentially for others, right? And so the beauty of the King of Cups is that he can kind of be grounded. So you see he's sitting, right? He's sitting on a rock, but he's in the water and he's surrounded by the water. And so it's about having that kind of stability. And you don't have to sacrifice stability for emotional awareness, right? Or to honor your sensitivity. Basically, emotions, intuition, that subconscious, that kind of sensitivity, it's just additional information, right? It's additional information that helps you survey the landscape, that helps you get a bigger picture view. And so there's a place for everything, right? There's a place for logic. There's a place for practicality. There's a place for, inspiration and creativity, and there's a place for emotion. And so, yeah, in terms of this observer card, it could be that you're too close to something, or you've personalized something too much. So your own feelings about yourself or about the situation, it could be clouding the best way forward. And so perhaps stepping back in an emotional sense and getting a better understanding. Like, for example, if you don't know your triggers, right? If you don't know what triggers you, if you don't know what you struggle with in terms of your emotions, your perceptions, your beliefs about yourself, your relationship to yourself, and love, self-love, confidence, and then love for others. It's very difficult to keep yourself grounded in other experiences, and those emotions can come in and they can hijack a perfectly good thing without us even realizing, right? So getting some distance, getting some additional perspective, perhaps people that know you really well that can help point out things that you might not be able to see on your own. But yeah, the challenge is really just being able to embrace the information and the stability that's available to you emotionally and intuitively, because there could be a sense that, yeah, that information's available to you, but it's useless. Or you may think that emotions and that kind of approach, it might make you weak, or it might make you feel vulnerable, or you might think that there's no practical use. But there's a lot of untapped power here. And it's about recognizing that you can embrace this King of Cups energy, and you can still do all the things that you like to do, and you can still be practical and take steps, to secure, your material abundance, right? This is just giving you more insight, right? And this is giving you a level of emotional stability. So emotional stability is just as important as that material stability, but it just might be a little bit less comfortable and familiar for you to navigate. And the beautiful thing is that your advice for working through this challenge is the Queen of Pentacles. And the Queen of Pentacles is kind of like that, a very loving, stable, nurturing, like Mother Earth kind of energy, right? So it's like, it's almost like mothering yourself, right? Extending that maternal energy to yourself, caring for yourself, providing for yourself, right? In just the most practical and basic ways, but also knowing your strength, knowing your abilities, knowing and being confident in your ability to handle anything that comes your way. Right? So it's kind of recognizing when you're in this Queen of Pentacles energy, which is has a proven ability to provide and to nurture and to, manifest stability and to, care for others and create a nurturing environment where the, these material needs are provided for. If you can do that, you can do this too, right? And mastering the emotional and subconscious side of things might feel more daunting and difficult because it's not what you're used to, but it's kind of the same process, right? It's the same type of process, it's just a different energy. And remembering that you can cultivate that material stability in your life and all the success you've had in that, despite any hiccups or ups and downs, you can apply that confidence and you can apply that same approach to this inner mastery, right? And that these two energies are just going to complement each other. So, and that's kind of interesting what I was saying about opposing forces, because this is kind of it, like earth and water, right? But they have a harmonious relationship when it comes to the whole cycle of life, right? So they might be opposites, but they also work together really beautifully. And I think it's just about being able to embrace this energy and incorporate more of that in, like knowing when to be in this emotional, subconscious, intuitive energy to connect with love and to be moved by love, and knowing when to be like more practical, right? And recognizing that in reality, we're meant to bring all of those into balance, right? So our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our inspiration, and the material, like practical side of things, we're meant to kind of work on mastering and bringing each one of those into balance. And that is going to help bring us into alignment in terms of moving where we want to go. And so the amazing thing is like there's a lot of opportunity here. There's a lot of potential for excitement. And it's kind of like, not personalizing things too much, not getting too close to things, not letting your emotions get in the way, whether they be positive or negative, like inflating things to a point where it's not sustainable, or dragging you down to a point where you feel discouraged, right? And so it's like, the more that you can kind of get some perspective on what's really going on, and to kind of remove your personal lens of experience, the easier it will be to allow things to move a little bit more organically and for you to flow and to find that balance. It's hard to find that balance when you're taking everything personally, and you're kind of feeling emotionally reactive. Whereas when you can look at it as something outside of yourself and see it in a more unbiased view, it's a little bit easier to assess like how things are going and what might be helpful, even if it isn't what you prefer. Right? Even if it's an unlikely way forward, and even if it's something that you're uncomfortable with, it's recognizing that your perspective is just one, it's not the only one, and you might be a little too close to certain things to be able to make that decision independently, right? It's good to have the different perspectives. And at the end of the day, you have proven and you know your ability to get things done and to make things happen, right? You've got that stability already, and adding to it on an emotional level is really just going to it's just going to elevate you even more, and it's going to help create a balanced environment for you to pursue whatever this passion is. Okay. So before I get your final oracle messages, I am going to take a minute just to share the channeled messages that I connected with before I got your cards out and began your reading. The first one was oil and water, which made me laugh because that does go kind of hand in hand with opposing forces. And so I was thinking like oil and water, right? They kind of, they oppose each other. They separate. Like you can try your best to combine them and eventually they'll always separate. So it could be you, right? Your experience and trying to bring those opposing parts of your personality into balance. It could be you and another person being kind of opposite, like oil and water. And so the take that I got from this concept was not how different, right? It was not about opposing forces and challenge and butting heads. It was about recognizing that even oil and water can be combined, right? So it's like you need an emulsifier, right? So for those of you who like cooking, like if you're making a mayonnaise or like an aioli or something, it's egg, right? Egg will help emulsify like a oil and water, right? So it's recognizing that even if something seems to be like not gelling and not making a cohesive kind of mixture, chances are there's something that's going to bind that. There's something that's going to help integrate that into what it needs to be. And it could just be a matter of figuring out like what is that point of connection? What is that thing, right? What's going to emulsify these two things into this balanced kind of mixture that you can actually do something with, right? And so that might be something that you're a little bit too close to be able to see. That might be something that you need to get perspective on. So if that makes sense for you, that's something to kind of look into. The next message was immediate gratification. And what I would say, especially is, the typical Taurus thing is that, hedonism and luxury and, enjoying the finer things in life. I would just examine, when I say immediate gratification, what is your response? What do you think of? What's your reaction to that, right? So maybe taking some time to examine your relationship to the idea of immediate gratification. Is it something that you feel that you need? Is it something that you chase after? Could that be something? Maybe a need for immediate gratification comes from something emotional that you're looking to fill, like a void that you're looking to fill. And is that maybe taking you in a direction or inspiring you to make decisions that are kind of pulling you off course? And maybe recognizing like if immediate gratification is a thing, what might that be connected to, and how might you go about kind of releasing its hold on you? Because, we can't rush things and everything happens kind of in due time. But also you don't want to be so focused on receiving gratification and validation that it takes away the inherent value of whatever you're experiencing, right? So for example, if the creative process is something that's really enjoyable for you, if you're focused on the gratification of, whatever you create being recognized, then before you've even begun, you've already kind of sold yourself short, and you've removed, in a sense, your ability to fully enjoy the creative process of expression, right? So it's kind of like sometimes the things that feel good and that are habitual to us are not necessarily serving us. And sometimes it might kind of like validate us or stroke our ego, but it's not actually providing us the solid sense of self and success and value that we're truly looking for. So that's what I'll say for that. And then the last thing that came through was immaculate vision. And the idea of immaculate vision was having like a very clear idea of what it is that you're wanting or what you're working toward, because that is the first step in manifestation, is to have a very clear picture, right? Because the more that you know what you're working for, the more you can infuse that kind of energy, and the easier it is to kind of determine what steps align with that. And that being said, part of the balance is holding that vision and knowing what you're working for, but also being open and being flexible to change, and recognizing that that vision may change and grow based on the experiences you have and the things that kind of come up as you move along the process. So, taking some time, especially if things are stagnant and you've got some time to reflect, to form that vision and know what you're working toward, but also not being so tightly bound to that you are putting the blinders on and missing out on opportunities for things to be changed and transformed, right? Because I think that vision is always meant to kind of grow and change based on what we go through. All right, so I'm going to get you a couple of oracle messages. Ooh. So this is the Crystal Spirit Oracle, and the card that came out for you is Lithium Quartz, which is number 33. So 333, repeating threes might be a theme for you this month. I'm just going to find it in the guidebook and read it directly from there for you. Okay. So lithium quartz, harmoniousness, peacefulness, joyful interconnectedness. That seems appropriate. So becoming still calms the activity in our heads and puts us back in touch with our bodies and our spirits, as well as the conscious universe. Lithium quartz spirit appears with a reminder to get quiet and recognize that you have within you all that you need. You just need to amplify some of the qualities that can bring a sense of joy and fulfillment. Wait, hold on. Sorry, I just got completely off track here. So, lithium quartz spirit appears with a reminder to get quiet and recognize that you have within you all that you need. You just need to amplify some of the qualities that can bring you a sense of joy and fulfillment by giving them quiet, calm attention. Overstimulation can be distracting, so refresh yourself with some time spent in or around nature or nature's creatures, whether it is a furry, warm animal or a pond with fish swimming happily. Retrain your senses to recognize that all is well when you are tuned in to the rhythms of the earth and aware of the interconnectedness, the water and sky, yourself and the ground beneath your feet, the breeze and the birds flying from tree to tree. Turn your face to the sun, recognizing that just as you drink in its rays, you are always drinking in the pure joy and love available to you from the conscious universe. Today is a day for experiencing peacefulness, harmony, and happiness. And then relationship. Peacefulness in partnerships comes from being willing to trust that there is more than one way to make things happen, more than one way to think or act. So that's kind of like the lens of our experiences versus other perspectives, right? Being open. We are meant to support each other in our healing and growth, balancing each other out, which is why opposites so often attract. See, there's that theme of opposites again. Let yourself appreciate the harmoniousness that arises when you allow yourself to be different from another, yet unified in love and joyful interconnectedness. Harmonious, and then prosperity. Harmoniousness means agreement on a common foundation. And when lithium quartz spirit arrives, it is asking you to see how much you benefit from complementary partners as you build your wealth and co-create a sense of security in this world. We are all interconnected and can all bring joy, love, healing, and trust to the spaces we share. When we do, our natural prosperity is amplified, as evidenced by the changes happening in our outer conditions. Today, do your part to let go of old fears of not having enough. Instead, bring peace to the table so that all may enjoy prosperity. And then meditation. Lithium quartz can be used in meditation to release attachment to a specific outcome, or even just held in the hand to calm frayed nerves. Having one on the nightstand or tucked into a pillowcase can assist those who have difficulty sleeping due to an overactive mind. So this is interesting because the theme is like opposites attract, finding balance and harmony, incorporating different perspectives, being willing to see things from a bigger perspective and how everything kind of is interconnected and working together. So whatever this is, you might not be doing it on your own. So maybe you've been trying to do it on your own. Maybe you've been reluctant to work with other people because you just see challenges or differences. And this is kind of opening you up to say, like, there are other perspectives available to you, and there's something to be gained by that. So don't feel as though you need to do it all by yourself. It might not be, sustainable, and you might be missing out, and other people might be missing out because if there's an opportunity for collaboration, it might not just be you that's missing out on that opportunity, but another person or other people may be transformed as well by that collaborative experience and just connecting different perspectives for, a united goal. Okay, so we're giving you one more oracle message. Let's be very specific. Also, I apologize. I've been having a really difficult time reading from the guidebook after channeling the messages because it's completely different. Like reading energy and channeling messages versus reading words. Like my brain just cannot compute. So if I fumble over my words or I have to restart the sentences, like just bear with me because those are two completely different things. My brain has a hard time bringing both of those practices together. Excuse me. Okay. All right. That took a long time, but we finally got your message. We have Anna, grandmother of Jesus, and it says, seeding the light, laying foundations, divine plan. So perhaps there's divine nature, connection to whatever it is that this pertains to for you. Okay, so I am going to just find this in the guidebook. Okay. Anna, grandmother of Jesus, was an ancient mystic who dedicated her life to laying the foundations for Christ consciousness to be woven through all of life. She is not widely known, but without her, Christ consciousness would not be rising as it is today. Anna represents the quiet dedication that is sometimes required to live a life of service. She represents the generations that came before that devoted their lives to dreaming a new world into being, while knowing that they would not see the glorious end result. She represents the dutiful soldier, the unconditional mother, and the mystic who can see the thread that is woven through all of life. Anna teaches us that we all have a part to play in the divine plan. It doesn't have to be on the world stage to be significant. One person's part is not worthier than another. One person's part may be to mother their children, another's may be to gather women in a circle each month. No part is better or worse, more important or less significant. We each have within us a seed of light that we incarnated to share. Anna is gathering us all to remember and to surrender to our part of the plan. And there's an activation. If you wish to do it, it says to hold the card on your heart and say the following words. So if you want to do it, I'll try to hold the card up and you can just envision yourself doing that. So it says, hold the card on your heart and say, Beloved Anna, thank you for laying the foundations for the divine plan. May the seeds of light within me be revealed, and may I surrender to my part of the divine plan. Interesting. So also, this kind of goes hand in hand with seeing the bigger picture, right? Because you may be really focused on yourself, right? What you're doing, what you're getting out of a situation, what your legacy is going to be, what kind of mark you're having. And maybe that kind of falls into that immediate gratification, like a need to feel successful, a need to receive recognition. And, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that that's kind of an innately human experience, but this could be saying like, maybe you're looking at your purpose or your actions right now a bit too closely, right? And maybe what you're not seeing is that you can play an integral role, even if you don't recognize that massive shift or recognition within your lifetime. But the work that you're doing is important, right? And it's laying the foundation for generations ahead. And the reason that we benefit from a lot of the things that we do currently is because previous generations were willing to kind of do that work and see that light, right? To hold that energy for us, even though they knew they were not only not going to be able to benefit from the change that it would create, but they wouldn't be able to see, our generation benefit from it, right? So it's kind of realizing that we're all connected and we're all in this together, and that my well-being is no different than your well-being and is no different from the well-being generations ahead of us, right? Is that we have to be kind of conscious of others and how we're all connected, and that it's our responsibility now to do our best to create a good place for our descendants, right? And future generations. So looking at the big picture might help you feel a little bit more sense of connection to, and maybe a little bit more trust in terms of what you're doing and what kind of impact that's going to have, because it might not be realized right now, right? It might not even be realized in your lifetime, but it doesn't mean that it's not important. Okay, I am going to get you a couple of affirmations. So these affirmations you might find helpful as you move through the remainder of the month. It could be right now, it could be daily, or if you find yourself struggling. So it might be worth writing them down or holding on to them if they resonate for you. Okay. So your first affirmation: I let my intimate relationships be my greatest learning devices for spiritual growth and healing. Yeah, quite often relationships are one of the most major vehicles, of change and growth and transformation, whether they're people that we're meant to be with long-term or short-term. If we allow ourselves to be open to the experiences, the opportunities, and the learning that kind of comes along, it kind of helps us move along our personal path. So instead of focusing just on ourselves, it's recognizing that we are here to help and support and sometimes trigger each other, and it's all kind of for our own good. When I honor my feelings, I find my power in powerless situations. I think that goes really nicely hand in hand with the King of Cups, recognizing, honoring your feelings, making space for them, processing them, using that intuitive information, but not being swept away and becoming reactive, right? So having that stability when it comes to your emotions helps you have that internal stability, which helps you to navigate any kind of challenges or instability or change in your external landscape. And finally, I speak with confidence because the world needs my light. Yeah. And I think that also goes hand in hand with this opportunity, this creative opportunity, right? So to follow that path and to connect with and express that inspiration, it does take confidence, right? Because it might be different. It might not be something someone has done before. It might not be something that other people are familiar with, right? And it might not be comfortable for you initially, right? Because it's your authentic energy. And if you haven't had a safe space to express that, it might not feel like a safe thing to do, but it's recognizing that whatever this light, this passion and inspiration that has an opportunity to be invested in and experienced right now, it's to be confident in doing so. And the more that you do it, the more comfortable you'll become. And it can become a really beautiful vehicle for change and transformation as well. So Taurus, I'm going to leave your reading there. I hope that it was helpful. I hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy this reading, the best way to support me is to like this video on YouTube. Also, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think or how it resonated. Beyond that, if there's anyone you can think of that might be interested in my readings, you can feel free to share my channel or my content with them. And don't forget to check out my channel if you haven't already at Bright Soul Collective Tarot. Ensure you're not only subscribed to the channel, but also signed up for notifications, which is the little bell icon. That will keep you up to date on new readings as they're posted. So Taurus, I hope the remainder of this month is good to you. I am really excited with how promising this energy looks. I've been so happy to share this time and space with you. It's been an absolute pleasure to read for you, and I'm looking forward to reading for you again next month. But in the meantime, I'm wishing you all the very best.